Friends, what's going on? Welcome to the second ever episode of Diner Talks with James. As you can tell, when I'm insecure, I put on my broadcaster voice. Hey, thank you so much for coming out. Thanks for tuning into the show. Anyway, that'll calm down in a minute, but I am so pumped that you are here, friends. Thank you for jumping on to Facebook Live and kicking it. Let me know where you're here and watching from. I'd love to know where you're here. Are you sitting at home? Are you on the couch? Are you in Tennessee? Are you in Spionk, Long Island? I don't know where you are, but I want to know. And I'm super pumped to be kicking it with you. Here we go, episode 2. Yes, what's up, Betsy? How you doing? Thanks for coming through, friend. Oh, Bets. So, I had a good day today, friends. I had a lot of cool things that happened to me, and I'm just excited. We got things moving and shaking in the midst of quarantine. I'm still attempting to play offense, but playing offense is always a little bit complicated, especially when the world feels a little bit weird. But I'm trying to still do it. Because I believe that's what great entrepreneurs do, is they play offense. And there's a guy named Scott McCain who talks about that. If you want to be iconic, you got to play offense. And so I'm trying to do that, but not step on toes and get in the way. But I had some really cool moments today that I'm excited about. And the business is just moving forward, y'all, even in this weird times. Mind you, everything I'm talking about, I'm not actually making any money from, but I got things moving, and that's exciting. So I'm so pumped to be here. Who we got here? We got Elizabeth coming in from Napa, drinking bubbles on the patio. Rub it in, Elizabeth. I'm here for that. Shout out to Napa. Do they still squish grapes with their feet? Hope so. New Jersey. This is depressing. I'm just kidding. Jersey, I love you most days. But anyway, I'm excited to be here, y'all. Let's jump into this week's top three. Let's go. First up, coming from my brother. When your parents and your family tell you should do this, you should probably do it. And so my brother John said, "Hey James, why don't for your first top 3, you talk about your first 3 favorite dishes from mom?" Now, that's a little backstory on my mother. Okay. I love my mother. She's incredible. She's where I get my gregarious nature. She's the reason why I can talk to a park bench for a while if I wanted to. But here's the thing about my mother, is that she runs a tight ship at home. All right. Everything is just super. She's just very militant about the way the house is kept, and she's got her systems and she's got her processes. And that's great because, she was the one running the home. My dad was commuting to New York City every single day, and she was the one making sure that we had a really incredible house to live in. And so the thing is that she used to get obsessed with certain things like dusting and whatnot. She would always be like, "James, listen, we got to dust everything. We got, and whenever I brought home like a trophy from a baseball tournament that I was in, or a track meet that I ran, and yes, I ran track back in the day. I know right now I don't look like I got the quickness, but still, I would always bring something home. She's like, "Oh, good. Congratulations." I'm not dusting that. Okay. I'm not dusting that. My dad and I won some plaque. We played in a tournament together, this golf tournament. We came home with one of these big old plates, and we're going to put it up on the mantle. She's like, "You can put it up on the mantle, but as soon as that thing collects dust, I'm throwing it out." All right. My mom ran a tight ship. Okay. At one point we got a bunny. It was really cute. His name was Caniculus. I named the bunny Caniculus because I like when things are complicated. Caniculus is rabbit in Latin. Now, I took a lot of marine biology courses. Caniculus is still the only Latin word I know. But whenever we got the rabbit, Mom said, "Fine, we can get a pet. But if you think I'm dusting this bunny for 1 second," I'm telling you, y'all, she ran a tight ship. I don't know how many of y'all had a tough mother growing up, or a tough father, someone who just kind of made sure everything was going ship shape. But my mother was that. But my mother was also a beast in the kitchen. But the tightness stayed true. So let me tell you about my 3 favorite dishes that my mom made. First off, turkey a la king. Now, normally this is the dish that you have after Thanksgiving with Thanksgiving leftovers. It is a cream-based sauce with turkey in it over bread, or sometimes over biscuits, and it is delicious. I would quickly eat all of the cream sauce, and then I would take the biscuits, open them up, and I would pour an egregious amount of honey on top of them, because what is a better vessel for honey than biscuits? You can't name one, friends. Okay. Next, number 2 is my mom's chocolate cake. Now, here's the thing. You only got chocolate cake once a year. It was on your birthday. That was it. You got chocolate cake once. At no other point was she making cake. I don't even know if my mom knew how to make any other kind of cake. This was the only time you ever got cake, and it was always chocolate and chocolate cake, which is the best kind of cake, so I'm not complaining. But here's the thing. Again, my mom ran a tight ship. So if it was every your birthday, it was like if it was your 15th birthday, you would look down at the cake, and there'd be 4 candles on it. And 3 of them would be burnt halfway because they were from last year's birthday. And you'd say, Mom, what's going on? I thought it was supposed to be 15 candles on this, maybe 16. And she said, listen to me, James. There's 4 candles on the cake. The 3 red ones, those are 5 each. Okay. That equals 15. All right. Congratulations. The blue one's for good luck. You're lucky you got anything. You're Irish. All right. So here's the thing. Mom ran a tight ship, but that chocolate cake was so good. I didn't even care, y'all. I didn't even care. And the number one dish that my mom made that's the most delicious thing is Mama Robilotta's spaghetti sauce, okay? Listen, you set up any other mom's spaghetti sauce in front of my mom's, I will smack it away. You don't understand how good this was, okay? This dish was so good that if there was ever a need to impress, right? Like, for example, if one of my brothers are a little older than me, if they ever needed to impress, they would bring in the heavy hitters of the dish, right? Because if like the parents of one of their future wives was coming over, we'd have to bust out the lasagna because Mama Robilotta's lasagna is a deal clincher, okay? I'm telling you, it's the most delicious thing. But here's the deal with Mama Robilotta's lasagna. You get 1 meatball. Here's the deal with Mama Robilotta's spaghetti. You get 1 meatball. And if for 1 second, if you think you go back in there for seconds and get a second meatball, Mom's coming after you with the fork. You think I'm kidding right now? I'm not. I watched it happen. Rest in peace to my buddy Bobby. Anyway, top three. That's the first one. Shout out to Mom's top 3 favorite foods. Next, coming here from my boy Brandon. My boy Brandon coming up next. Next is top 3 quotes. Now, we could do famous quotes if we wanted to, but I thought it'd be more fun if I did top 3 quotes that you maybe have never heard of. So first quote comes from my buddy who told me this story about a grandfather of a buddy of his. He said that his friend was just kind of sitting around on the lawn being lazy, kind of doing dumb things. And he was just sitting around. He wasn't doing anything. And the grandfather approached him. He said, son, I need you to get up and I need you to go do things. Okay. Go try things, go taste things, go experience. The reason why is because, quote, no one wants to listen to an old guy with no stories. I love that quote. Tell me who tells the best stories in your family. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Who tells the best stories? What's going on, Danny Taylor? How are you, brother? Good to see you. What up, Jackie? Good to see you. All right, up next quote. This is from one of my best friend's grandfathers. His name is Norman Sellers. And he simply said this: we're all in favor of change as long as it doesn't make any difference. Facts. Because here's the dirty secret about change, friends. Another word for change is work. And a lot of people like change, but not a lot of people like work. So therefore, there's not a lot of change. Anyway, next, last quote. Last quote's from my psychology professor. I only did well in 1 semester in college, and it was when I had this professor. His name is Dr. Dragna, which is just a great name. Sounds like it could have been in Harry Potter. Wasn't, but he probably was a Slytherin. But anyway, he simply said this in one of his talks. He said, the moment is more important than what comes after the moment. The moment is more important than what comes after the moment. I love this quote, but this quote messes with me. And at some point in time on one of these episodes, we're going to talk about this because I currently have a battle in my head between presence and legacy. Between being present and what I want my legacy to be. It's an interesting thing. We may get into that today with Erin Foley because she's just wonderful like that. Last top three. This one is going to have some beef. I need you to put in the chat what you think the best comedy movie of all time is. Now, I decided to take out animated movies. All right. So no animated movies on this list. That's its own brilliant that's its own a brilliant category of its own thing. And I could go all day on Pixar. Maybe we'll do that another week. So the best 3 comedies of all time. First off, some honorable mentions. Coming to America is great. Blazing Saddles is great. But I went through with a lot of classics in this one. Number 3, Naked Gun. I don't know if I've ever laughed harder than through those Leslie Nielsen movies, and all the Naked Guns are exceptional. If you've never seen them, watch them and just prepared to get dumb and giggle the whole time. My favorite thing. Next, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Don't even, come on, y'all. It's just a classic. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is one of the greatest movies of all time. Any movie that has a killer rabbit, it's probably going to be pretty high in my book. Rest in peace to Caniculus. Next and last, the number one favorite movie of all time. This is actually in my top 3 favorite movies of all time. It's my favorite comedy of all time, and it's Caddyshack. Shout out to Caddyshack. Oh, I tell you. Oh, man. Oh, like, give me 4 of those. Give me a box of those. Give me some of these orange bowls. Give me a box of teas. Give me one of these. And oh, look at this hat. Oh, you buy a hat like this, it must come with a free bowl of soup. Oh, looks good on you, Judge. Caddyshack is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's great. What's your favorite movie of all time? Put it in there, friends. What do we think? We got somebody else. Thank you, Maria. Also there with the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I appreciate you. Shout out to you. Yes, Caddyshack. Thank you, Jackie. All right, friends. Let's get into this episode. That stuck to me. That was adorable. Let's get into this episode right now. My guest today is a great friend of mine. I've known her for a number of years. We met on the speaker circuit. Her name is Dr. Erin Foley. I don't even know if she likes being called Dr. Erin Foley, but I do know that I like making her uncomfortable by shouting out her prestige. But she is coming to our way. She is a mindful individual. She does a lot of powerful coaching around mindset, and she's an incredible individual. She's a former university professor, and she lives in upstate New York in an adorable home. Please clap it out right now for Erin Foley. Erin Foley, how are you?
Good. It feels like I should be running in from a corner and you should be announcing my weight. When did it? Like, I was like, man, I got to find my energy here. I got to come in strong.
Coming in strong. Intro. I mean, you've just been hanging out in quarantine, Erin. So, I mean, and you are a self-proclaimed homebody. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, I'm over here dying to meet a stranger.
I know you are. I'm the person that puts my head down on the airplane and just hopes incessantly that no one speaks to me.
That's incredible. And I'm the person who literally has a blog called Airplane Friends.
I know you do. I know. It's true. Yes. I'm a homebody. So I don't want to say I'm thriving in quarantine, but I'm surviving in quarantine. I can say that I've been training for this my whole life. There's no question.
Good for you. Introverts of the world, unite.
That's right.
And tweet about it.
That's right. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
For sure. I'm excited. Erin, it's so funny that you were a natural fit to be one of my first guests, because there's a dirty secret out there that I'm about to air out right now. And you know about it. But the world needs to know about it as well. And that is that a number of years ago, I don't even know how many, was that 6 years ago, maybe about 6 years ago or something like that. We were in Portland, Oregon, which was where you were living. One of the greatest towns in this country, in my opinion. Shout out to Pine State Biscuits. But we were there and we sat down in a beautiful park in Oregon, which is basically the state of Oregon. It's just one big, beautiful park. It is. And we had a conversation, and then later we went back to your apartment and we recorded an episode of my podcast. Mm-hmm. Now, to those of you watching right now, you may know that I don't have a podcast. But what I do have is 8 episodes that have never seen the light of day of a podcast.
You're like you're going to die. When you die, they're going to discover, and it's going to be like the unpublished podcasts. And all of a sudden it's going to be huge and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, we got to get our hands on those podcasts.
Yes. Let's hope. Let's get that problem for sure. Yeah, but Erin, the reason why I didn't put it out is because I didn't think it was good enough. Mm-hmm.
I figured that might have been the trip up.
Yeah, I didn't think people would care about it. I didn't think that the style was good. I thought about, I poked holes in it, and instead of just releasing it and let it grow, instead of just releasing it and letting it turn into something, and let it morph into what it could then be, the vision that I did finally have for it, I just let it sit under a rock while my friends asked me about it, the few that I let it out the bag that I had it. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited because your episode was one of my favorite ones that I recorded, and people are just gonna have to take my word for that.
If I recall, it wasn't the podcast topic vulnerability? Was that sort of the overall topic of the podcast?
It was. Yeah, it was called Living Imperfectly. Yeah, it was called
Living
Imperfectly.
I love that, though. Isn't it just so great, though, that you didn't put it out because of perfectionism, and then that gets to be like a part of. So when it comes out finally one day, that's a part of the whole story, right? The struggle with vulnerability and perfectionism, man, it's big. It's real.
Yeah, for sure. Jordan thinks Jordan's telling me to put it out and tell me to, just take the leap. Hey, brother, I appreciate you, man. I agree with you. This is the current leap, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
But for me, I was afraid to press record. I was afraid to press record because there's something about when you're in the room with an audience that you can feel it. You can see the impact that you're making. They come up to you afterwards. It fills the validation bucket a little bit more. Whereas with this, I mean, we have these comments kind of popping in here on the right side of the screen, but you don't hear the laughter. You don't hear, you don't see, you don't hear the pause, the silence of that dynamic moment that you created. And you don't get the hugs and the high fives and the tears that you do in live. And so it makes it a little bit more complicated.
That's interesting. So part of the shift for you is do you feel like when you're in the room, you can adjust if it's not landing? And if you're not in the room, you can't adjust it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best speakers in the world are actually incredible listeners. Because you have to be able to give the audience what they want. One of my favorite quotes of all time, going back to the top three, it's actually from Jay-Z. He said, "First I have their ears, now I have their hearts." There's just something powerful where if you can get people's ears, you do that by listening, you do that through relatability, you do that through storytelling, then you can grab their hearts and then you can really make an impact. But if you ignore that, the cues that the audience is giving you, then you never really get their ears and you certainly never get their hearts.
Yeah. That's pretty big. That's pretty deep stuff. I mean, it's like, I find it all terrifying at some level. Like, it doesn't matter the medium for me, there's something terrifying about all of it, whether coming on here and just like shooting the shit, whether I'm in front of a huge live audience, especially when you start talking about yourself or there's something really vulnerable about being in the arena, no matter what the arena looks like in my mind. I mean, I adjust to it and I get more and more brave, but new business owners are always asking me like, well, when do you like feel super confident? And I'm like, well, like to an extent, never. Because if you're continuing to grow, it starts to feel scary. My brain was like, I do a lot of interviews where it's sort of pre-planned, or people ask me questions and they kind of tell me ahead of time, like, here's what we're going to do. And then I do some where it's off the cuff. Yeah. And my brain today wanted to plan, right? It was like, I should really think through, like, what would I say? And and then I was like, nope, that's old perfectionistic Erin. And that's the part of me that I always work against. And I was like, no, I'm fine to come on and just chat, and whatever comes up, and whether I sound eloquent or not, it will be fine. And I have to constantly work against that desire to want to tailor it and make it good enough, quote, for the audience, as opposed to, why don't I just like show up and let people see who I am and see what I have to say, have a conversation, listen, be engaged. But it's uncomfortable, particularly when you have had a space, which you have, I think, like in speaking, where like, I know I'm in control kind of what's happening.
Yes.
It's like, I know what I'm saying and I've fought through the things, and it's just, I don't know, there's something like free falling to me about letting that go and really learning how to just go out and be yourself and engage in the conversations and engage with the audiences and say what it is that you want to say and not know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's real. You brought up a really powerful word, Erin, in control.
Yeah.
And control is interesting. It's something that I didn't admit until a few years ago that I had an issue with. And because I don't think I ever called it that. For example, I don't drink alcohol. I drink maybe like one drink a month, maybe like 9 drinks a year or something like that. And I have nothing against it, but alcohol was just never a huge part of my life. Even in high school and stuff like that, I didn't do that. And in college, I didn't either. But I used to tell myself the reason why you don't drink is because I like the person that I am. So why would I put a substance in me that would change me? I also know that alcoholism is something that runs in my family, and that I've had a number of family members that have had to deal with it. And so it is a genetic thing. And do I want to roll the dice and find out that I got it or not? Right. And so
the package I don't want to unwrap.
Yes. And unfortunately, and another reason why I never drank is because my grandfather, when I was 5-7 years old, was unfortunately was killed by a drunk driver. And so alcohol was this huge thing for me. And whenever I would be in a space where I could have a drink or anything like that, I would never do it. Just because I was like, I don't want to change. I don't want to change. But what I realize is that when you flip that on its head, it's that I like to be in control. I want to be in control of this moment. And so, and I noticed that in the way that, like in certain leadership situations and in certain relationship situations where it's just like, especially when it comes to things around time, I love to be in control of time. And so it's just such a powerful word. What's your relationship with control? Like you mentioned that you kind of needed to push through some things.
I feel like for sure for me, it was for a long time wanting to be in control of how people perceived me.
Yeah.
That was big. It really, I was so a part of how I lived my life. I didn't even have like an awareness of it. I didn't even know the difference between my decisions, what I wanted to do, and how it was perceived, because it had meshed together so much that I had no longer had like a sense of this is mine versus how you perceive me. And it really wasn't until I blew up my life, got a divorce, changed careers, became a quote life coach after being a professor, where I was like, I had to work through. I mean, nobody who's a professor is like, what I dream of being as a life coach, because people deeply respect that career. And, you know, it's seen with such prestige in the world, right? Like, I was literally making decisions that were seen as a step down in my life, or were seen as problematic and had shame around them. And so I had to work through letting go of how people might perceive those decisions, how I might be perceived, maybe not how I don't want to be perceived, and letting that be okay. And it was massive in my life in terms of like just sort of ripping out everything I knew from underneath me and having to deal with that. I mean, I'm grateful for it now because I think I can live my life a lot more freely for myself than I used to be able to. Not that it still doesn't come up, but it was some big time shifting that I had to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. And that's, I mean, the amount of work that you have to put into that is difficult. Kind of goes back to the change quote that I was talking about earlier, is just how much work change is. And I love that you brought up that you were a university professor. You were a professor at SUNY Oneonta, the State University of New York, for those of you who live outside of the state of New York. SUNY Oneonta. It's funny, my brother lived in Oneonta for a long time, and he occasionally went to class. And but you were there. You were there at different times, and you wouldn't have seen him if you were in the classroom. But
fair enough.
But still, so he came out. He's doing just fine. But you were a professor for 8 years, and you were right about to get tenure. You're going to get tenure in the next year or two, and I mean, tenure as university professor is a huge honor. It's a big deal, but it's also a pass. And it's a pass to kind of relax, and a pass to academic freedom, and a pass to kind of really creating your own destiny as a professor. Yeah. And it's really it's the Willy Wonka golden ticket in the university world. But you were like, oh, cool. That's about to happen. Nah, I think I'm good. Let me go be a speaker and a coach. What was that like? I mean, you mentioned that, you went through a divorce and stuff like that. Did all that happen around the same time? Like, what was going on there?
Everything happened around the same time. You know, it's so interesting to look back on that all now and to be able to sort of project what I know now onto that. But I think truly I had squeezed at the journey that I had built for my life so tightly. Like it sort of fell upon my lap at a time when I was an undergraduate in college. My father died my sophomore year of college, fairly unexpectedly and quickly. Everything that I knew to be sort of stable and calm in my life was ripped out from underneath me. And I came to these communication classes where I started to feel like I was getting attention and accolades for being really smart in this setting.
Yeah.
I did fine in school, but I wasn't the smartest kid in the class by any stretch of the imagination. And suddenly I was really good at this, and I was engaging in the debates, and I was understanding the theory. And I felt like that I had found this space and this identity, and people started to invest in me in it. And you should get your master's, and you should get your PhD, and you could teach, and you should be a professor. And it became something that I sort of put my head down and squeezed at so hard, and couldn't think outside of it. And I finally looked up with a PhD. I finished the dissertation, which was a journey in and of itself. I was working. I had the husband, I had the white picket fence, I had the dog, I had the house, I had like everything. And I totally was like, I don't even know who I am. Like, do I even want any of these things? Like, what happened? What just happened? It was like I had blinked and anxiously squeezed my way to the end of this journey. It was not an easy journey for me to get a PhD. There were a lot of signs that maybe this wasn't the lane I wanted to be in forever, but I couldn't even see outside of it. And all I wanted to do was continue to impress the people I had impressed and hold on to this identity I had created and like be the person who could get the accolades for who I had become. You know, people would always be like, oh, you're a professor? Wow. Oh, you look young. Oh, it's just like, I felt special and important. And like, I guess I'm doing it right. Cause like people react positively. And I was good at teaching. I knew in the classroom, I loved the students and I was really good at doing that.
Right.
And so when I looked up, it was like, it was like having, I guess, an early midlife crisis. Like everything started to crumble around me because I just didn't understand if I wanted what I wanted. I started being self-destructive. I started kind of sabotaging my job. I didn't care about things anymore. I didn't want to do the research. I didn't want to do the papers. Do I even like this? It was like I became really rebellious at the life that I had so controlledly created and suddenly didn't know if I wanted any of it anymore. And I don't want to romanticize it because there was nothing about it that was romantic. It's not the path I suggest for folks. I'm not like, you should blow up your life. It's a great way to find yourself.
Here's a comedic stick of dynamite from a Looney Tunes cartoon.
But it did force me. I fell apart so rapidly and so much that it forced me into complete vulnerability. I needed some of my friends, like I was the person who had the answers, who was the expert that people came to, that I was the advice giver. I had a whole identity around this. I had a lot of codependent shit around it.
Yeah.
That all went out the door when I blew up my life because like I was a hot mess and I had to like become a person who was like, I'm a hot mess and I need help. Like I need people to help me figure out what's gone wrong. What do I want? What do I need? So really my journey here was like coaching, therapy, friends, behaviors that weren't helpful into behaviors that were, right? Like it did force me to look at my fear of failure, my fear of rejection, my perfectionism, my codependency, my disconnection from myself, all of it. Yeah. It was a journey of years of finding my way out of that. And like, at some point I knew unequivocally, I didn't want to be working with academic content anymore. It wasn't where my heart was and it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And I knew if I got tenure, I will never leave. I will be here for the rest of my life. And I am no longer connected at all to the things that I'm teaching or talking about. And I'm a person who is terrible at faking it when I don't care about something anymore. Like doing the thing you don't really want to do. I'm awful at doing it. I will just like blow it all up and walk away before I will like get myself to do the thing and pretend like I care about the thing. I have to care about the thing I'm doing to stay motivated. So I left. I bounced.
Yeah.
Yeah. And found my way to 2 new careers, speaking. And then that led me into coaching, which is where my home is.
That's so hard to do. And I think, I mean, first off, shout out to I got to put this one up here right now. Because you were clearly great at what you did. Right.
I love those kids so much.
Yeah. And that's so special, but it's hard to leave something that is still kind of serving you and it's also hard to leave something that is prestigious. Right. I mean, how many people get into careers just because it's the right thing to do, or it was strongly suggested by their parents or their culture. And for you to fight against that is so bold and so courageous.
Yeah, it's funny because I hear that, but for me, when I was experiencing it, it didn't feel bold. It felt inevitable, right? It just felt like I had nothing left to give in that space. I'd come to class and I wanted to talk to them about stress and their life choices. And like, I wanted to talk to them about all of the things that had to do with personal and professional development. And I didn't care about any of the theories or the concepts I was teaching anymore. But it really felt like it felt inevitable. It was like, I felt like I had no other choice because I didn't feel like I couldn't. I remember Martha Beck saying when she left her academic institution, she went to put the key in the lock to her car and unlock it. And she was like, I couldn't even turn the lock anymore. I was so done. And I just remember thinking, it was time for me to think about tenure. They were like, okay, chop, chop. You got to get your research going. You got to go to those conferences. All these things I just stopped doing because I was just like rebelling against it. And I remember thinking, there's no way I'm doing those things. There's nothing you could pay me to get me to do it. So I'm going to have to find a different path.
Yeah.
And so that's really why I did it. It didn't feel brave. I give myself some credit now for the business building and the courage that it's taken to stay on the track. I'll say that I feel a little brave in that, but the leaving of my job felt inevitable. It just was like, I really had to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I think there's a lot of people that don't listen to those signs for whatever reason. And so I appreciate your pushback for sure on my brave comment. But you and I also know a lot of people that are stuck, right? You do a lot of career coaching and people who are stuck and they're writing stories in their head about, well, I'm not blank enough, or, you know, I pigeonholed myself here. So why would anybody ever hire me to do this? Or I've never done that. So how could I even possibly start there? Or it would be so much work to put all the experience that I have down here and go over here. And so it still takes a matter of actually seeing yourself and owning, like, I deserve this. It's such a powerful thing that we can say to ourselves is, I deserve this, right? And that concept of what do you deserve is super powerful.
And you can handle it. I think the biggest lesson I got was that I could handle uncertainty and I could handle change and I didn't feel resilient at that point in my life. I felt like successful, but not resilient, because I felt like I had controlled my way into success. As long as everything, lined up the way I needed it to, I was good. But if you ripped that out from me, I was like, I am not resilient. And I learned that I am, and that I was able to grow my resilience. And that's honestly the biggest gift that I got from all of it. Is just, I know I can handle it if shit hits the fan. If I have to start over, if I have to go a different route, if something in my life changes, I'm like, yeah, you've done it before, you can handle it. And I think we all long to feel resilient, because that feeling that we can't handle it is what prevents us from making those changes in our lives. We're like, I don't know what's on the other side. I can't handle it. I don't want to put that podcast out. I can't handle what might happen on the other end. And once you figure out you can, it's like, all right, I guess I can. It doesn't always feel good, but I can handle it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Knowing that we are resilient is something that I think we all kind of know way deep down, but there's so much doubt and so much stuff that gets put on top of it. Brian here, right? Grit is critical for sure. But it's difficult because we've all been through things, and we've all, for the most part, landed on our feet in some way, shape, or form. And we're here, right? We're in this moment right now. You've made it to this moment. That's pretty cool. Whatever you've been through or whatever you're currently going through, we're still here right now. And the next time that you're faced with something a little bit difficult, something you're unsure of, something you don't really know a lot about, if you don't believe that you're resilient, then you'll be less likely to try. You'll be less likely to start, and you'll be less likely to love. And just the way that folds in. And so this is what I love about your story, though, Erin, is that you said, all right, let me blow up my mid-30s and let me go ahead and take a quick left turn. And you found a really exciting career. And so you, how we met was we were both on the same speaking roster for a number of years. And if you want Erin to come and speak to your people, she's on the campus speak roster, but also just go straight to her website either way. And so the thing is, though, is that you're a great speaker, and you pivoted into a world that you knew that you could succeed at. And the coaching was something you were really excited about, the one-on-one creation of those moments. But speaking was also something that you dove into. But the fascinating part about this is that you don't like speaking.
No.
And so you like painfully walk to the airport like a dog that like knows it did something wrong. And you go to your hotel room and you're like, oh, Hampton Inn again. And I don't know if you're a Hilton property. This program is sponsored by Hilton. That's not true. But let's get that problem. But still, and it's so crazy to me because you're very good. I've seen you speak before, and you are great at speaking, but what a weird place for you to be where your talent doesn't match your passion.
It's like, I cannot tell you how many times I laugh about this because it was the same with teaching and being a professor. And like the first time I realized that was speaking, I was like, are you serious? Like, I remember being like, I know I could do this. I know how to do this. I know how to get better at this. I know what the path is in front of me, but this isn't quite it. Right? Like I knew the first time I went to a college campus and did the big thing. And first of all, I was still in the midst of working through a lot of the crisis at that time. And the magnitude of being on a stage and realizing all of a sudden the accolades of this audience and the tweets and it was very overwhelming for me at first. But I knew I called a friend from the hotel room right then crying and said, like, there's no way that I want to be
from the Hampton Inn hotel room. Let's get our sponsors in here. Thank you.
From the Motel 8. Probably Motel 8 back then. I don't really remember, but I knew. I was like, this is not, this will serve me and I will do it to serve my people and I will do this to get messages across and to build my audience, but this isn't where I belong necessarily. But this time it was different because I had done that already. I had had signs throughout my academic journey that maybe this wasn't exactly the academic path that was right for me. I had had signs. I had had boulders hit me over the head. I had ignored them all and was like, no, I will do the thing and be successful. I will do the thing and be successful. I will do the thing. And this time I was like, guess what? I don't have to do this thing and be successful. I can do something else. And so that's the best part of that whole journey for me was quickly I realized I wanted that coaching relationship and I realized I wanted the one-on-one and I was never more certain of anything in my life than the first time I coached someone and did the coach training. And I was like, this is home. This is it. This is everything I've ever been meant to do. And I was so proud of myself for being willing to not hold on too tightly to the other thing for the first time, because old Erin would have been like, so help me God, I'm going to squeeze this speaking career until I fall on my face.
Yeah.
And make sure I succeed at it somehow, you know? And I was probably just too tired to do it at that point.
The sleep isn't as good in those Motel 8s.
Not for a homebody. Not for a homebody like me.
Yeah. But that's so interesting because at the moment where you did not necessarily, you had some ideas for where your career was going. You had some things kind of set in motion and you were ready to go. But then all of a sudden you're like, all right, cool. Here we go. Going to be a speaker. Going to do this. Let's go. And then you're like, I don't know. Like that had to feel super weird. Like you said, like you're crying.
Oh, I was wrecked. How many times do we do things though where the idea of the thing is so different than the reality? I mean, constantly. You know what I mean? And I had been teaching for so long. I had spoken in front of people. I had done keynotes. Like I knew, like I know this thing. I'm comfortable in this space. I know college students. I know what they need. But the reality of a full-time job in that is much different. And yeah, I mean, I think it's common. I think people need to be easy on themselves when they go down those roads. You don't know till you know, and you don't know what things are going to feel like sometimes until you do it. With that said, I want to be clear that the mindset issues I have worked through at this point in my life, I would likely have experienced all of that differently. Even my job as a professor. Had I worked through a lot of the fears of failure, the rejection, the perfectionism, the stuff that I have spent so many years working hard at so I can enjoy my life and my career more, I would have likely experienced the transition differently. It probably would have been, I might have still left, but I would have left probably with a little more ease. I would have probably started building the coaching business while I was teaching. Like I wouldn't have had to have done things. So I was always trying to change my circumstance to feel better. And I was grasping at new circumstances until it finally clicked. yo, I'm the circumstance that needs the most work.
Yeah.
And so by the time I really moved to coaching, I was getting internal stuff much more worked out so that I could experience this space so much differently than I experienced the other circumstances of my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all watching this right now, if you have experienced any sort of fear of failure, a fear of maybe I'm not going to be good enough, fear of just any of those kind of things, fear of starting, even fear of success is a thing that some people talk about for sure. It's something that I think I'm worried about. I'm just smash a like button, smash a heart button, and let's just send a little bit of love to each other right there. And just because it's something that we're so many of us are going through in different ways.
For sure.
And I'm so grateful for your vulnerability, Erin. Not that I expected anything less. But here's the interesting thing is that we're both coaches.
Yes.
We're both coaches. Only I like speaking. And you're
a baller speaker.
I'll pay you later.
Real here.
But what's interesting is that we're both in relationships, both in newer relationships to each of us as well. We're both in second loves, if you will. What is it like being a coach in a relationship? Because I know for me, there are times when Tina is like, I just need you to listen right now. I don't need you to work through it. I don't need a deeper question into the why behind me eating this snack right now. I don't need anything like what is it like for you being in a relationship? And what are some of the I guess let's call them critiques, shall we, notes that your partner gives you?
It's clear for me because Josh is his own man. And he's 99% of the time, he is not interested in me being his coach. That is unequivocal. This was really hard for me at first. It's hard for anyone when you're first in coaching. Like when I first started coaching 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, I wanted to coach like everybody I met. I was like, you don't understand. I have these tools. I have these things. I'm going to change your life. Like I came out hard. I was like, everybody needs what I have to offer. This is amazing. Yeah. And like, I couldn't stop wanting to like put it everywhere. And you quickly learn like, we don't coach people who don't ask to be coached, right? Like there's just things I had to, but in my relationship, it was tough because I would be like, oh man, I feel like you're really selling yourself short. I feel like you've got an upper limit problem here. Like it would be like ticking, but that's also part of the codependence that I had to work through, that like I'm my own being and other people are their own beings. I don't always have to be the savior, the person that they need, the advice giver. Like I don't always have to be that role. And in fact, sometimes in my relationships outside of coaching, it's best for me to not be in that role. And I really worked on letting that go and letting us develop spaces where, you know, I'm the person that feels like I know what's up and I take charge, and he's the person that's up and takes charge, and like he leans on me and I lean on him, and like really I focus a lot on bringing my vulnerability into the relationship. Like during this quarantine and like when the pandemic first hit, I was overwhelmed and I had a lot of emotions, and I would be like walking out into the middle of the living room being like, I think I'm going to cry. I feel so anxious. I don't know what's happening to me emotionally. You know what I mean? And old coach Erin would have been like, no, I've got this. Like, let me take my coaching. And like the me now is like, I'm a human and like, I'm going to be a mess in this relationship sometimes. And sometimes I'm not. I think what's interesting is he gets coached vicariously through me coaching so many other people.
Sure.
He literally hears the one side of conversations. Like he's like, my headphones are in, but he just hears the things I say to people. He hears when I'm in a conversation and they're asking me when I'm being interviewed. And so I hear him feedback. He gets a lot of the stuff that I give into the world because he pays attention, he listens, and he respects me. Right. But I've coached him twice, like officially coached him twice. And it was fine. And it was helpful and it worked, but he's like really clear that like, that's not what he's looking for in his relationship with me.
Yeah, for sure. I bet, I bet there's some times where, maybe you're like, you know, I bet he's listening right now. And so let me throw in an analogy, right? It's like, I understand how sometimes you're like, what are the socks on the floor of my life that I need to pick up? What are the floor socks in my life that just need attention?
Right? Oh my God. Even my friends, I'll be like, they'll call me and they'll be like, having a problem, I'm like, friend Erin or coach Erin? Because they are very different people. I mean, I am in a mode when I am coaching, and it is a clear process and a clear way of approaching things. And like, it's very clean. I'm disconnected from the outcome, all of it. And then friend Erin is like, are you kidding me? What the hell? Don't let him speak to you that way. Like, right, friend Erin will say all kinds of shit that coach Erin is not
coming for your neck.
And so I always do that with my friends. I'm like, and it's like 60-40 when they want coach Erin and friend Erin. But those are important boundaries for me that I've had to learn to navigate. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend's very similar to me as well. For me as well as too. It's like I just need to talk right now. I don't need it. I don't need to get into it. I don't need to whatever. I don't need to spend 3 hours on this. Like I just told you that I should buy a bigger sweatshirt next time. Like, do you wanna unpack why you think you need to cover up more of yourself? It's like, no, I just don't like the way this one fits. Oh yeah. Do we like what is fit?
Right.
I know your previous employer said the same thing to you. You want to get into that? Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah. Erin, here's the last question that I want to end on with you. And then we'll take some questions for the audience. If you have some questions for Erin and I, please make sure throw them in the chat, and we'd love to spend a little time with you after this and addressing some of the things that are on your brain. She's brought up so many cool nuggets. Erin, the last thing that I want to touch on with you is that, you said it yourself, where in an example earlier, you're like, I really feel like you're not reaching your upper limit, or you're upper limiting yourself. I forget exactly how you phrase that. What was that phrase?
Your upper limit. You're having like an upper limit problem.
You're having an upper limit problem because you're normally that's for individuals that they set their ceiling too low. Yeah.
Or when you start to move up higher, you unconsciously self-sabotage because you're not comfortable at the higher space. And so all of a sudden you do things that bring you back down to where you're comfortable being. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny because when I first reached out to you, on the advertisements that I do for these things, I say, what are the three, give me 3 words to describe you. And so my first one to you was coach, professor, because I knew you still teach some classes. I didn't know exactly in what way, or if it was at a university or whatnot. I was like, let's throw that up there because it sounds impressive. I was like, coach, professor, an introvert. And then I said, coach, professor, introvert, or I said, how about coach, entrepreneur, introvert?
Yeah.
And Erin, tell everyone how you responded to the word entrepreneur.
I had a mini identity crisis because it was so interesting to be like, I am an entrepreneur, but yet you put it on me and it was like a pair of jeans that did not fit. I was like, ugh, no, like this is not my identity. This is not who I am, which is fascinating. I've never thought about it. I love an activity that asks me to think about like 3 words and really try to be introspective, because let's be real. We overcomplicate the shit out of things as humans. We're like, who am I? How do I want to describe myself? Does that really describe me? Like, in a way, it doesn't really matter. But
yes,
I think it does help me to see the parts of my job that I still have some rebellion and resistance to, which is a pattern for me throughout careers, as you may have picked up, is the entrepreneur hats, right? So I didn't come to this career because we have friends who are true born and bred entrepreneurs. They're like, I was selling jeans in 5th grade, right? I was figuring out, how can I sell? How can I make $1 out of this? How can I turn this into a thing? How can I close the deal? Which is a beautiful thing. And that's what brings them to the entrepreneur life. I never had that dream. I didn't do it because I want to work for myself and I want freedom and I hated my boss. That's not my story. I came to it because coaching was home for me and I fell in love with this so much. And I knew this is what I have to do. This is the most I can contribute to the world, hands down. So it became the avenue to do that, but it didn't become the thing that necessarily felt like it fit. And I've had to learn all the hats that go along with that. And some of those have been some heavy hats to put on, like things I'm not necessarily interested in, things that I didn't have any skills at, learning how to self-promote and sell and all of these things. I literally co-teach a marketing class right now. I'm a mindset coach and I co-teach the content on marketing for new business owners. And she's always like, I'm like, no, I'm the mindset coach. I don't really do marketing. And she was like, are you, Erin, you like literally are a marketing expert now. Like you could teach this whole class. Yeah. People sign up for coaching from me and I help them get clear on their messaging and their niche and like what they're doing. And she's like, it's a riot that you just like you won't like even identify with it. it just isn't my entry point into why I'm here or what I believe is my reason for being here, my biggest contribution. So, but I also came to a really peaceful place with it when you asked the question, because I was like, yeah, no, that isn't, like, I am a coach and a creator, and that is why I'm what I do in the world and feels the best to me. So I think I'm okay with not having entrepreneur lead the way, but it's also potentially a space where I need to chill out on the rebellion. It's probably not serving me.
Yeah, right. What would you say to someone who's out there right now and is feeling a little bit stuck in where they are, and is maybe it doesn't know their potential or is scared to reach their potential? And some of the things, like, obviously it's not, like you mentioned earlier, you don't recommend blowing up your world and just going into it. So what would you say to somebody like that, who's just kind of like, maybe it's time to get unstuck, maybe it's time to move, but I just don't know what to do or where to go because I've been doing the same damn thing for so long and this hamster wheel is comfortable and at least I know where it's spinning? How would you, as you took some of these leaps, as you started to name some of these things for you, how did that happen?
I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to take full inventory of exactly where you're at. So look at where you're at, look at the patterns of the space that you're in and see if they've been following you. Most of the time they've been following you. I can tell you as a coach now for 5 years, they've been following you. And like I always tell people, change is great, but change doesn't change the patterns. Change just changes the circumstance. And so the best thing you can do is clean things up from where you are now first, so that you can get to the next step in a clean way. And what I mean by that is, what's the pattern that's following you right now? Is it fear of failure? Is it difficulty with your relationships? Is it lack of motivation? Is it procrastination? Is it, like, what are the things that you see that you've done repetitively? And are you trying to change your circumstance because you think those things are going to change? Because those things won't change. So like when people come to me, and like I'll get people all the time who've recently leveled up or they're in something new and they're having a confidence crisis and they're feeling really overwhelmed. And they'll often say, like, I think maybe I just need to leave this. I think I need to go do something else. I think I need to bounce from this job. And I'm like, cool, let's just clean some stuff up first. And we address the things that are going on. And it's like 85% of the time people are like, damn, I'm good. I just like needed to relate to my life differently. Or they clean it up and now they can see more clearly where it is that they want to go. So, because stuckness is it's kind of vague and it doesn't help us get real insight. It's like, get clear. What are you stuck around? What are you afraid of? What are the patterns that you currently have? And make sure you're looking to see if they've been following you. Because a lot of people think the pattern is new and it's just come up. And that pattern's been following you through everything you've been doing. Yeah. And you really want to break the pattern.
Yeah. I mean, we see that applies to so many things in life, even relationships, right? We talk about the honeymoon phase, and the honeymoon phase is just what the honeymoon phase is ideally it's a lot of physical intimacy, but it's also a lot of ignoring what is actually right in front of your face. Yeah. Because you're just
brain chemicals. I mean, it's like a heroin hit to your brain. So it's also like, it's doing a lot of trippy things to you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships, career, even family, friendships, asking ourselves, is this pattern serving me? And identifying it, is this serving me? If it is, great, double down. If it's not, then let's start the process to pivot, which you just articulated.
If you think the problem is everyone else around you, you are stuck in a pattern you cannot see. That is I was in that trap all the time. No, it's the people, it's the na-na-na, it's the this, they're the ones that are the problem. And it was like, man, when you're in that phase, it's like you're really disconnected from your own stuff, and you'll keep jumping to try to fix it, and you'll keep finding that annoying people are following you everywhere. Yeah. And you won't realize, like, you're the person that's really relating to people in a way that's keeping you stuck.
Yes. Erin, what a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for being my friend and for what you do in this world. And thank you for finding your gift and blowing up your life so that the rest of us can benefit. That was really lovely. It was both selfish and selfless of you, and we all thank you. Yeah. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We're going to get to some questions right now. We got a few coming up. And there's a couple things. First off, I want to put this one up. It's a little bit long, but just for you to see, Erin, it's just some cool love here. Thank you, Jackie, for posting this. And let's get this Kool-Aid. Let's keep drinking out here, homie. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Yeah, my buddy Brendan asked us a question, and it's not an odd question at all, actually, brother. But what is the difference between coaching and therapy? How would you define that?
Yeah, people ask me this question a lot. So the truth is, I think it's dependent on the individual who is doing the coaching. I've heard people describe like therapy looks back, coaching looks forward. I find that it's not, that the line isn't as clear as a lot of people think it is. For me and my coaching business, I do not work with people who are clinically depressed, clinically OCD, struggling with a clinical diagnosis. I don't diagnose in my business. So I'm working with people who are, for all intents and purposes, stable, mentally stable, but struggling. And I do go back. We go back and forward. I do go back sometimes and look at things. I don't work with deep traumas. If traumas come up that are pretty deep in my coaching, I send people to therapy to do that. But it is a different experience. I had a coach and a therapist. I worked with both for several years. For me, the tools of coaching were different than therapy. And they moved me into change, action, and replacing my patterns much more rapidly than therapy did. Therapy gave me a lot of decreasing shame and getting comfortable with my story and feeling like I had a safe space to talk. And coaching gave me a lot of sort of reprogramming my brain and sort of having me approach my life, my career, and the world differently. So that's how I describe it. But I don't think it's always that clear. Depending, I know people who are coaches who work with trauma. So it's really, I think it's individual.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely coaches all across the board. And a coach can really define who they want their clients to be. A psychologist can, as counselor or a therapist can as well. But coaches, you find like some very specific niches. And it's pretty cool. I know a lot for me when I think about the coaching that I do is that the therapy that I've been in, it didn't feel like I was being held accountable to things. I was being held accountable to reflect, held accountable to show up, held accountable to dive in and lean into the process of reflection and things like that. Versus the coaching that I've done, the coaching that I do and that I've had that I've been a part of myself has been a lot of more action oriented. So like for my clients, it's like, hey, here's what I need you to get done by our next call. I want you to do these 3 things and work on these 3 specific things, where it's a little bit more action oriented to actually get you to start to move. Because starting is the hardest part because so many people confuse starting with finishing. Right. And it's not right. It's just different. They're very different. And so starting is such a big concept where we're like, I think I want to lose 40 pounds. All right, cool. Tomorrow I'm going to buy P90s Tex. I'm starting keto. I'm going to buy one of those mirror things. I'm going to dance in front of it. And it's going to tell me how many reps to do. Right. Like Peloton. Right. And it's like, no, starting. That's not what starting to lose weight looks like. And so there, and same thing with other changes, like starting to be an entrepreneur, starting to leave a relationship, starting like all those kind of things are that starting point looks very different than what the finish looks like. But we're so quick to jump to that end or even the middle. And then we can't do it because we didn't set ourselves up for it. So that's what coaching helps do, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's a good description.
I love that. Great question, Brendan. Next question from Dan Fay on the House Jump for Joy. He asked, what advice you often give others, but rarely take yourself? This is interesting. One of the questions I thought about asking you, Erin, was because this is something that comes up for me is I consider myself a pharmacist, right? I'm out here, basically, Dan, I'm not dogging on your Peloton. Okay. Look at this right here. This is it.
Okay.
So I consider myself a pharmacist because I pass out the drugs. Oh, you should take this. Oh, you should practice self-care. Oh, you should speak kindly to yourself. Oh, you should do that. Start all those kind of things. But then when it comes to me taking the drugs, I'm like, oh, no. I pass them out. I don't take them. Okay. A pharmacist can't take every drug they got in the arsenal. You know what I mean? But as a coach, we really can. Now, we really can take all of the drugs that we prescribe to other individuals. But I don't all the time. And I know that I frequently encourage others to press record, to believe in themselves, to put themselves out there at a rate that would be much quicker than I would ever do myself, because we can see others' greatness oftentimes before they can see it. And same thing with my mentors. My mentors saw my greatness before I saw it. And so, yeah, that's an interesting concept. Now, where are you at?
First of all, what a good question. Really great question to ask to coaches. I will say, at this point, I could have had a lot of answers to that for a long time. I work really hard at practicing what I preach, like, especially in the last 2 years, because I've been committed to taking my coaching game off the charts, and nothing makes me a better coach than doing all the things. Then I have a coach. I've had a life coach. I've had a mind body coach. I'm in a mindset sales program. I invested in a marketing class. I am not afraid to pay for people to help me. I'm not afraid to go to somebody. Josh will say to me, that looks like perfectionism. Right. It's really, he calls me out on this stuff. That doesn't mean I am 100%, because I'm definitely not 100%. But this is something that in the last 2 years has really shifted for me, where I'm I want to be doing all the things I'm saying. I want to be doing the mindset work on myself. I want to be a human who leans on people and gets help as much as I can. And it's changed a lot for me. It's up-leveled my business and myself. I mean, I would say for sure I should be promoting myself and putting myself out there more than I do. And I tell people to do. For me, there's just such a laziness around it and a disconnection from even liking the process of doing it, which again is me not wanting to do the things I don't like to do. But when it comes to the mindset stuff that I coach on, oh my God, I really try. And I'll be in session working someone through something, and I'll come out and be like, well, Heller, believe that was all the shit I needed to hear today. What am I missing out on? What am I not doing? Because sometimes it's almost like I just coached myself through the whole thing, and having to sit with that and take that in and be like, all right, now I need to apply that to myself. I love the question though. It's a good one.
Yeah, great question. And I know there's a bunch of other advice definitely that I give to others that don't take myself. So thanks, Dan Fail, for making me reflect on that, and ideally not push myself into a shame hole. What? So
there's no shame hole.
There's no shame.
I don't exercise enough at all. And I tell everyone to do it because it helps your mental health. And boy, do I resist it. That's one I give myself a solid D in. It's not really what I coach on, but I tell anyone who's feeling depressed and slow, get your body moving. And then meanwhile, I'm in my yoga pants sitting on a chair.
Yep. Real talk. I love it. Erin, we're going to end on this really important comment. Oh, wait, actually, no, we got a great question coming in really quick. I love this. Dan Lavender. We got only Dan's are allowed to ask questions during this part of the show. But Bren, Dan Lavender, Dan. Anyway, the joke worked. So how do you define successful coaching? Is there a concrete goal that is met, or some measurable just job well done at the end? What does success look like for you as a coach, Erin?
For me, it's so fun now because I have niched in. So there's two groups of people that I work with. One is corporate, mostly women, men and women who are in something new job, new role. They're having a confidence crisis. They're freaking out about their boss's feedback. They feel like they can't settle in. They can't adapt. Yeah. The other is entrepreneurs who are leveling up. They're experiencing a lot more success, changes, new opportunities. They're having confidence crisis. They're not feeling focused. They're having imposter syndrome. I 100% am now at the point where I'm like, you come in with that problem and you leave without that problem. So it is measurable. And that's really important to me in my coaching. People who come in a new job, I tell them in 3 months, you will likely be confident, be clear, be calm, be performing well. And if you're not, you might need to do the program twice if someone's in a really, really big mindset. But I can tell 90% of my people, it takes 3 months. And it's the same thing for my entrepreneurs. You come in and I want you coming out. And it isn't that people never experience those mindset problems again, or they never have, but I am now really goal focused in my coaching, but the goal isn't for me, it is a state of confidence, focus, performance. It's those things versus like I wrote a book, right? I'm not coaching around those things per se.
Yeah.
Actually, I do have some people who've written books, but yeah. So, and I would say, Dan, if you're ever looking for a coach, ask them that question because I think it's important for people to own the results and not be afraid. I think that's why you niche in, is so that you can find the spaces where you know I can get people from here to the island that they're trying to get to. And that's why you hired me. And that's what I do.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And if I know Dan Lavender correctly, that question was actually submitted by his wife, Laura Lavender, and who is a great coach and is wonderful. And so
coaches. Woo, woo.
Be out here. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it really depends on for me with my coaching, I do some very specific speaker coaching where it's like, I'm going to help you. You want to write a brand new keynote. I'm going to help you mine for stories. I'm going to help you shape it. We're going to plan it out. I'm going to give you ways to test it. And by the end of it, there's an actual thing. By the end of the thing, there is there is a product that can be seen, but then there's other just general life coaching where people are leadership coaching, where you can feel that mindset shift for sure. I love it. Well, excellent. Erin, this was this was so cool. I now have Laura and Dan yelling at me. That's fine. Everything's fine.
By the way, the name Laura Lavender might be the greatest name I've ever heard. I mean, that is like, what a pretty name that sounds famous.
Yep, exactly. Laura Lavender. We'll be famous for sure. Wait for this book to come out. So I love it. And let's end on a great content. Let's bring it back to where we started. Okay. Shout out to my dad for posting this one. And this is just proof of how strict my mother is, right? And when there's guests that come over to the house, that's the only time that you're ever allowed to have 2 meatballs. So we would encourage people to come over, but we only had spaghetti on Thursday nights. So it was a weird night to have friends over. So we often just had one. Erin Foley, so awesome hanging out with you. Thank you so much for spending time with us and just kicking it. I'm so excited that you were able to just be here, and thank you for your wisdom and your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute joy. Cheers to Diner Talks.
Cheers to Diner Talks out here. Friends, thank you so much. Tune in next week, Facebook Live, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, where we will have a brand new guest and some more deep conversations and some more dinerific moments. Y'all take care. Be well.
Bye, y'all.